what we'd like to do is have a brief introduction to React, setting up our environment, and just creating our first controller, first component. If you don't know what React is, it's a front-end framework, mostly for UI components, and yeah, it's actually quite lean and pretty performant. It could be a little bit daunting to get started if you're not used to web development, or if you're coming from kind of classical web development. But it's certainly a lean little framework, and created by Facebook actually. So anyhow, first of all, first of all, a requirement is to have Node.js running. So depending on your operating system, you'd be grabbing either the Windows installer or Mac installer. And then along with that comes the package manager that you will be using to install packages. One package we'll install is Create React App, which will help scaffold out the project, and it'll pull down from this shared community of library, I guess you can call it, npm. All right, so first of all, I have already got set up, and by the way, here's a quick little quick start. If you want to refer to the documentation, react.dev/learn. Really good docs just to get started, but I'll certainly show you how to do that. So I have created already a folder that is mapped to Git. I had that in a previous tutorial where we showed how to just set up with your Git repository. But we don't need to concern ourselves with that right now. I already have a basic folder structure. I have Node already installed. So this is, by the way, is Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code is the IDE. You can use your flavor on your particular PC. Perhaps you have editor in your macOS. It actually slips my mind right now. The alternative right now, I think it was called Ion or something like that. But anyhow, Node-version. I'm running Node 20 right now. Actually, I upgraded, so I know I have Node installed. By the way, Node-version, or otherwise Node-v on the command line. For those dashes, usually signal flags. I want to see that I have npm installed. So npm, again, --version. I have 9.80, so that's good enough to get started. So first of all, what we want to do is, I have already had this set up because I do some development. But let's just say we don't, and we want to grab a hold of this Create React App. So we can actually go through here. And by the way, if you're looking at npm, you want to, if you're going to install these on your computer or PC local environment, you want to make sure that, because it's an open community, you want to look at the weekly downloads, the ratings possibly. This looks like it's downloaded quite frequently. It's a package we can trust. It has a lot of collaborators on it, and it should be a safe package to install. If you see very small number of downloads, and perhaps it's been kind of a new package sitting there for a while, you may not want to install it, mostly because it doesn't have the backing, and there can be some malicious malware or code in some packages, so you want to make sure they're trusted with anything. So what you do is you install npm install, which or you can do I as a short form, and you'd probably want to do it globally. I already have this installed, but if you wanted to install it globally, basically do it one-time install, and then you always have Create React App. Otherwise, you could do it locally without that flag. It'll install it into the project, and there's a concept called node modules where all of this code goes. Along for the ride with npm, the npm is a node package manager, but we want to run this. We want to execute this particular package's scaffold out. So there is actually a command called npx, which is node package executable, and we want to execute that create React app, and we want to scaffold out a new project. I'm gonna call it tutorial 1 intro to React. I'm gonna run that. It's gonna chug for a while. It takes a little bit of time to kind of scaffold out. And we'll just let that run. I'll probably fast forward somehow, or if I could actually pause this just to let it run and not have you sit here and wait too long. But take my word for it, it will actually take a little while to chug. I'll just quickly come back and pause this right now. This did take a little while to run. As you can see, it did actually actually scaffold out a full project. It's letting me know there's some commands that we could get going using npm. So what it does actually is we'll take a look at this. First of all, using some DOS commands, dir, we'll see that tutorial -1 intro has been created for us. So we can go into that folder. Pro tip, by the way, CLS clears out the DOS command. dir give me a list of my directories, and I used to type everything out. Just a quick little professional tip: if you're changing directories and you start typing, pressing tab will autofill that particular folder if it's close, so I don't have to retype it out. This again, and then you can see the whole folder structure. So this has gone and scaffolded out this React project for us. I said there is a concept of node modules. Basically, that's where the dependencies for React is gone. If you in fact did start out the step like we said with, you could install create React app directly in here. We did it globally, so there actually is a folder structure called node modules that exists by root directory. So certain packages that you use all the time would go there, scaffolding and different things like that, like monitoring tools and loggers. But if it's specific to a project, it's going to be installed in your node modules. So it kind of creates like a little scaffold, a little project, a basic skeleton of a React project. There's a source folder, there's a public folder. The package.json is interesting. This is where all the dependencies goes. So it'll give you the dependencies. What's needed for React is obviously React itself. We're on 18.2. React DOM is the renderer. That's there as well, 18.2. Some of these other things, the dev dependencies for testing. Right now, we won't get into that, but they come for the ride as part of the boilerplate. Another interesting thing is some of these script tags. So when we're going to run the project, we say npm run start or npm start, it's calling this script tag, and it's going to under the hood call something called React scripts, which basically is our build tool. It's a little slow right now to build, but there are in other tutorials will show some of the other package builders such as Vite, where it'll speed things up. Dev experience quite a bit. I guess so. We're in the directory here that we want to be in, and the first order of business is just to launch our project, and you can do that by running npm start. So that's going to go ahead and run React scripts. Again, depending on the project and the size of your project, it might take a little while to just kind of chug. And basically, what it's doing is it is kind of bundling and going through all of that code and bundling it up to the browser, basically, right? So, it's up to you. It may take a little while. You might be unhappy with the time it takes for React to bundle, and then if you want something a lot faster, you may look at Vite. All right, that did finish running. You can see right now it compiled successfully, which is what we want, and it says that it's available on localhost 3000. So we can actually click into that, control and click, but I've already done that. And it gives us this page right here. And this is our React app out of the box. And if we were to go and explore that a little bit, we have this public folder, which has an index.html. And this is kind of like where the whole React bundle and app gets injected, I guess you could say. There's a root tag, and that that is where all of our entire app will eventually be injected into the DOM, which is what the browser is rendering with. Entry points would be app.js. So this is our main component at this time. You can see there's some styling. Basically, here's our first React app, React component, which is a functional component, and it's called app. And all it does is it's static. It returns basically some markup, which is normally called HTML, but in React world it's called JSX, which is kind of JavaScript extensible markup. That's what it stands for. So it's HTML with a bit of JavaScript mixed in that React knows how to render. So each component, functional component, whether it's a class component or functional component, will have logic in it. Right now there's no logic, but a requirement is that it returns some JSX so that it can be rendered in the browser, right? So this is our first component. And what we want to do is we want to create a secondary component. Or in fact, we want to create our first component. So normally what I do is I'll create a components folder just because I like structure my projects. And then I'm going to create my first React component. I'm going to call it greeter component, and I'm going to give it an extension of JSX. Now, if you notice, I kind of have this nice icons set up, and I do have a React component, which is the app.js, which is fine. React understands it, but I actually gave my component a JSX extension only because I like the fact that it gives me a nice little icon for React. And how to get that is it's an extension, and I believe it's called, and this is something you can get from the Visual Studio Marketplace, Material Icon Theme. And what you do is you would look for that and you'd install it, and that pretty much will help you with, if you do prefer having this type of visual display for the types of files you have. So I'm going to create a basic React component, and what you need to do right away is you want to import in React from React, and basically it's going to pull in React from what we installed in the Node modules or what our scaffolding did, and we're going to create a JavaScript function. But because it is capitalized, that'll signal to React that I'm having trouble typing here. That'll signal to React that it possibly will be a functional component. If it's a functional component, it needs to return some type of JSX. So I'm going to just return some markup. It's going to be pretty basic. It's just going to say hello. It's like hello world, hello React. And then I need to export my component to the world, because if I don't export it, then it will never be visible outside of this. Okay, so I did some auto saving, and my project's still running. So what I want to do first of all is go back to our main component here, and for now, just to show that we're working in the same space, I'm going to remove this because I don't really need this. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to remove this markup, and I'm going to put my own markup in. I'm going to put a div tag here, which is a parent element, and I'm going to just say this is app component. And I'm going to it's going to compile and recompile. And if we go back here now, you can see now that has been updated. The DOM reflects the changes. Next step is we want to now display our new component. Working with components, there's a lot of nesting involved, and sometimes you'll have pages that are in container components that host many child components. So you'll have a lot of this type of situation where you're pulling in logic from one component into a parent, and then rendering it out. And that child component could also have nested child components, and you can get very levels deep into this. I'm going to remove some of this styling and images since we don't need it. And what I want to do next is I want to use that import, and maybe I want to see if I actually removed, I may have quickly removed, well, let's just see. I think I removed the React statement from this app component. I can't recall if it was there or not, but if I were to save this, in fact, maybe on this version it's not required, where in the past it would have thrown an error. Okay, so let's just go with that. What I really want is I want that greeter component. So I'm going to import greeter from, and I pressed tab and it auto completed, and it basically gave me the proper location of that file, which is components and greeter. And all I want to do now is I would like to just reference that component because it is a JSX component, and because it's a functional component or class component, and it returns some JSX. React will recognize this and allow you to reference this component as you would an HTML tag or a JSX tag. So you can actually reference this component in the markup in a similar fashion. So we have greeter, and we can do it this way, which is kind of the old standard way of doing it in HTML. But we don't need to do that. There's also a short form way of just kind of ending that kind of tag. So really HTML is about tags. You have a beginning tag and a closing tag. But this is a self-contained closing tag, if that makes any sense. Compiles correctly. We go back and you can see there is our markup for React. So that's verified our changes. And I guess a couple other things you could note. I guess one important thing to note about React is that there always needs to be one root tag, one parent tag, one container tag. So that's why I have these kind of div tags floating around. But if I were not to have that, you can see right away it's already giving me a parsing error. And the error is, and it's pretty common in React, you'll find this all the time, adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in the closing tag. Do you want to use a fragment? So basically it's saying that you can't have two siblings or two tags beside each other. You need some kind of container around it. And React actually has an empty tag called a fragment if you wanted to wrap your tag in. But I mean, we'll talk about more about that in JSX. The point is that you want to have a parent tag and have your JSX structured properly. And you can see after that change now we're back. So that's it. That's a basic introduction to React. We created one component. We talked a little about JSX, and we scaffolded a React project, and we verified that it's running. Next up, we need to get deeper into JSX, and we need to get deeper into React components.